Hi, my name's Kirsty Page, and I want to talk to you quickly about auditory blending, which is a really important skill because it allows children to move into reading through the phonic approach. So, with their phonic knowledge, they can sound out words, and then their auditory blending allows them to blend and work out what the word is. So for those of you who have Launchpad, auditory blending is located within the phonological awareness area. But I also want to remind ourselves that although it's an important skill and it's something that we want to facilitate and maybe work on with some children who have got gaps that are acting as barriers, we must remember that auditory blending at whatever level is underpinned by a child's sequential auditory memory. So that on Launchpad, that's located over here in the red and also can be considered in relation to language in this first orange column. So when you're thinking about your practice, so if you're preparing, our work towards preparing children for blending has to involve auditory memory and sequential auditory memory, not just auditory blending. And when a child is moving into reading and the more formal teaching of phonics, but they're struggling with blending, we must remember that the gap that is acting as a barrier may very well be located in auditory blending, but it actually might be a deeper and more fundamental gap, which is located back here in auditory memory. And we must kind of understand that these skills fit together and that certain skills underpin other skills. Now, Launchpad gives us the incremental kind of levels of blending. And of course, we want our children to be, when they're ready, to be able to blend at phoneme level with short, sharp phonemes, with short, sharp consonants and short, sharp vowels, because that's the level they will need to blend at to read early words. However, there's a lot more comes before children are at that level, which is all reflected on Launchpad, and we'll talk about some of those levels in a moment when we get practical. But whatever level of blending you're working on, I just want to kind of throw in a couple of things to consider that will kind of be able to be utilised at all different levels. The first one is quite important, and it's about how I offer the blend. So if I'm going to have a word and I'm going to segment it and I'm going to offer that word as segments, which is the children then need to listen to, hold in their sequential auditory memory, and then use their blending skills to blend, I need to consider how I offer those segments. And it's really important that I offer them as a steady metronome beat. So it would be a k, a, t, or it would be an elephant. I really want to resist saying cat, where I'm saying the segments so close together that the demands on their auditory memory and the demands on their blending are a lot lower. I'm pretty much saying the word. And the reason that this is so important is because I don't want to overestimate or assume that my children's blending levels are higher than they are and say, oh, this child can blend, but then be perplexed because they can't move into reading later on. Because that metronome steady beat is also reflecting the speed that children will sound out words as they begin to read. So that's pretty important. The other thing that is worth considering when we're working on blending is when we're facilitating skills with children, we're never ever only working on one thing. And if I've got objects in a feelie bag, or if there's objects kind of out in my home corner or whatever area, or if I've put some objects to choose from in the middle of our circle in a focused activity, because I'm working on blending, my instinct will always be to segment the noun that exactly names that object or exactly names that picture. So if, for example, one of those objects was a little toy horse from my farmyard animals, my instinct is to blend or s, which is blending at CVC level, but with some long sounds in there. So it's theoretically a little bit easier. But again, just remember I can be flexible with how I name and flexible with the words I use. So I could say, oh, I'm thinking of an animal. What am I thinking of? Yes, it's an animal. That is a horse but a horse is also an animal. Or I could say, I'm thinking of something that has 4 eggs. What has it got? So again, that's more looking at phoneme, and I could do eggs, which would be 4 phonemes if I was wanting to move up a bit. But this offers me more blending opportunities, but it also allows me to build vocabulary skills at the same time. That yes, this is called a horse, and for some children that might be enough for them to learn and to know that, but that a horse is also an animal. A horse also has legs. A horse also has a tail, or whatever other word that I'm going to use alongside it. So again, be flexible, because it gives you not only more blending options and opportunities at different levels, but it also allows you to build vocabulary and semantic skill, which in Launchpad would be located in this yellow area here. Now, if I'm running adult-led group, I'm a big fan of a feely bag, and remembering that when I'm doing auditory blending, there is no reason why I can't throw in objects there as long as they give me the right blending opportunities for my children that might be linked to the topics that we're doing, or linked to some stories that we're sharing. Or I could also do auditory blending, and vocabulary work at the same time. So it might be that I want to fill my feely bag with objects that all come from the same topic. So it might be that they're all items of food, or it might be that I put in my feely bag things that everything in there is something that you can open. So they've got a common verb, a common function in common. Or it might be that everything in my bag today are things that have got handles, so they've got a common part, or they might have a common location. Everything here is something that we can find at the beach, for example. So again, the main focus might be auditory blending, but I'm working on vocabulary and semantic links at the same time. And I think that's really useful, that we don't always have to compartmentalize skills at a practical level. The other kind of big thing as well is not to always think the only way I've got to work on this is when I'm doing an adult-led focus group, either a preparation group or an intervention group. I need to use my learning environment. For me, a learning environment simply creates opportunities for me to build skills with my children. And I can ask children to pass me, find me, show me a certain object that is close by in our environment, or right in front of the child, along with some other things, but ask them to find me it, show me it, pass me it, by segmenting the word within our interaction. So I obviously don't want to do this every time I talk to a child, but it's something that can become part of my practice that I can throw in. And I can particularly use this in a really targeted manner as children get a little bit older, where they need backtracking. I can create additional opportunities to embed interventions. I don't want to think that interventions can only happen with this child when they're sitting on the carpet having a intervention group. Now, to help you do this, it's really important and really useful to do what I would call an environmental audit. So say, for example, in my home corner, what words have I got that have got different numbers of syllables? What words have I got that are CVC words? What words have got short, sharp consonants? Which words have got long consonants and long vowels in? What compound words have I got? So that if me and my team understand not just what those things are called, but the blending opportunities that they create, we can use those in a targeted manner to build skills with all children. The more we know about which level a child is at and what their next step would be, the more targeted we can be. But also we've got that ability to backtrack and embed interventions when we're in the home corner or whatever area it may be. And remember, if my environment doesn't have the existing opportunities that my children need, I add things in. So say, for example, in my home corner, if I don't actually have any compound words, or I might just have one compound word, then straight away I'm going to add a little box of tea bags. I'm going to add an empty little mini packet of cornflakes. I'm going to make sure that we've got some sweet corn, so that I am creating the opportunities that my children need. And as my children move on, it might be that I need to keep earlier opportunities because some children haven't moved on as quickly. But again, what I offer the children, but the resources that create those opportunities might need to change and evolve over time, so that my learning environment is a source of opportunities, but it's my knowledge and working with my team to understand how those opportunities can be used and understand how those opportunities can be used in a really targeted way at the right level, that makes the most of things. And last but not least, let's just remember the opportunities that books we already have will create for our children. So again, of course, I can read the story. Of course, we can look at pictures and we can name what we can see in the pictures. There are lots of skill opportunities with pictures in books. But again, I can select something in the picture, but segment it at whatever level. So again, I could say, oh, can you find the butterfly? In which case it would be a syllable blend. Or I could say, oh, can you find me the butterfly? Which would be a compound word blend. And again, I can use books that I've already got. And once I get into this, I can just do this off the top of my head. But again, as I'm getting into it and as I'm upskilling my team, it might be useful to say, right, okay, let's have a look at this picture in this book. What are the things that we can see? How could we blend those different words up? What are the blending opportunities? What levels would they be at? And who needs to work at different levels? So there's lots more things that you can do, and I'm sure you will have many, many more ideas than I will. But I think that's probably enough for now. Thank you.